Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right into a pretty bold idea from our source material today. It's this. What if China's incredible modern success story is actually running on a 2,500-year-old operating system? And what if it's a system the West has, well, forgotten how to use?
So, the source we're looking at kicks things off with this really stark comparison. It's like a tale of two futures, right? In one corner, you've got the West, which it describes as being just bogged down by political infighting and infrastructure that's seen better days. You get the picture. And in the other corner, you have China, which is presented as this place with these massive 100-year plans, building futuristic smart cities. The difference couldn't be more dramatic.
So, that immediately raises a huge question, and it's really the heart of the whole argument our source is making. How did we get here? What explains this massive difference in direction?
Well, the answer, at least according to the source we're examining, isn't something you'll find in a modern economics textbook. Nope. The argument is that the key to understanding all of this is a blueprint that's literally thousands of years old.
And that blueprint? It comes from one person, the philosopher Confucius. The source's point is that his ideas have this incredible staying power. You know, dynasties came and went, empires rose and fell, but his core teachings on how to build a stable, prosperous society, they stuck around. They became the bedrock of the government, they were the basis for civil service exams for centuries, and, the source argues, they're still the foundation of China today.
All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of this blueprint. The whole argument really boils down to 5 core values. Our source presents these 5 ideas as the engine driving everything. And what's really interesting is how the source breaks these down. For each one, it draws this direct and, pretty provocative line between the value itself and what it sees as the equivalent, or lack thereof, in the West.
Okay, first up is a concept called Ren. At its heart, it's pretty simple. It's the idea of benevolence, of empathy. It's the core belief that you should treat other people with real compassion.
So here's where that comparison kicks in. According to the source, Ren is all about building a society that's focused on the community, on taking care of each other, and that's put right up against what it calls the West's me-first culture, a world driven by rugged individualism. Next up, we have Sin. This one is all about trust. Think of it like this. The idea is that a society is only as strong as its word. Trust is the glue that holds everything together. Without it, things fall apart.
And again, the contrast the source draws is pretty stark. On one side, you have Shin, this idea that builds integrity in business and society. On the other side, it points to what it calls a crisis of confidence in the West. Collapsing trust in politicians, in the media, even in the banks.
All right, the third value is Li. Now, this one's a little more complex. It's not just one thing. It's about ritual, it's about respect for tradition and institutions, and it's about understanding your place in the grand scheme of things in the social order. And this leads to 2 totally different ways of looking at the past, according to the source. With Li, tradition isn't some dusty old thing, it's a source of strength, of harmony. The source contrasts this with a Western mindset that it claims often sees tradition as something to be thrown out, a burden holding back constant disruption. Number 4 is Z, and it's really important to get the nuance here. This isn't just about book smarts or knowing a lot of facts. Z's about a deeper wisdom. It's the ability to see the big picture, to plan and act with real foresight. We're talking long-term. And this idea, Z, really gets to a central point in the source's argument. It sets up this incredible contrast between China's 5, 10, even 100-year plans, and what it calls short-term thinking in the West, where everything seems to be about winning the next election. And that brings us to the 5th and final value, Yi. You can think of this as the moral compass. It's the principle of righteousness. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's choosing what's right over what's just easy or profitable. And our source positions this as a direct antidote to a system it claims is just completely driven by profit and power. It points to things like corporate greed and political self-interest, and says Yeti is the opposite of that. Okay, so we've got these 5 ancient values. But the big question is, how does this old philosophy actually turn into modern progress? Well, the source doesn't just leave it as theory. It makes a direct link between these ideas and the incredible, real-world things happening in China right now. I mean, just look at the country's high-speed rail network. It's massive. Our source points to these bullet trains zipping along at 350 kilometers an hour and says, see, that is Xi in action. It's a perfect symbol of that long-term strategic planning made real. But it's not just about trains, not by a long shot. The source rattles off a whole list of these huge, ambitious projects. We're talking about ports run by AI with driverless trucks, entire smart cities built from scratch, and even these deep investments in bringing new life to rural villages and cultural sites.
And what's really key here is that this philosophy isn't just for giant, national megaprojects. The source makes that clear by zooming in on a specific village, Dongzongdu. It shows how a bunch of idle old houses and some land were totally transformed into a vibrant cultural center. It's proof, the source argues, that these principles work on a human scale, from the ground up.
So, all of this, the philosophy, the comparisons, the modern marvels, it's all building to one final and pretty challenging point. And to wrap it all up, the source brings out this classic quote from Confucius. It really perfectly captures this whole idea of thinking not just about tomorrow, but about generations from now. And that's where the explainer leaves us. It completely flips the script. For decades, the conversation was about what China could learn from the West. But the final question our source poses is the exact opposite. When will the West start learning from China? And, more importantly, from the ancient wisdom that it claims is paving its way into the future?